Hello everybody and welcome to Tuesday Newsday. It is the first Tuesday Newsday of 2015. ArenaNet today released a trailer about the conclusion of Season 2, which will be coming next week in just 7 days. So I'm here to talk about the trailer. We're going to have a look and see what we can find. There is a pretty big lore bomb here now. You're going to be hearing my speculation as to what it is. But there's going to be the return of a pretty cool character, it would seem. And the return of this character makes it very hard to predict exactly where the plot will go. Now, as you guys know, pretty much throughout the entirety of the second half of Season 2, we have been hearing this line, point of no return, and if we're ever going to get a payoff on this idea, it's going to be this exact patch. Do remember that this patch is going to be bigger than the last, finale we had, which was the mid-season finale, okay? Try to compare this patch coming up, hopefully, in terms of the patch where we killed Scarlet. Now, they really did a lot of work at the end of Season 1. The best Season 1 ever got was those last 4 or 5 patches where we had the Worm, the Marionette, we had several patches all to do with Lion's Arch, and ultimately we finally managed to defeat Scarlet. We had that kiss scene, we had the awesome moment where you get to finish her. There was a lot of really cool stuff, and they really pulled out all the stops to have a good finale. Well, we're at that moment again, and I'm just hoping that we get something fairly on par here. It's really going to come down to the story content we see here and exactly how much prep time they've had. We know that they just went on a break, but I think it would be a mistake to think that this next patch is going to be super different and have way more content, just because obviously this was over Christmas, and the main reason for their break was the devs went off to have a Christmas break. So it's kind of difficult to gauge the quality of this patch. There are certainly a fair few things in the trailer we can look at, and as we do this, I think you guys should bear a couple of things in mind. We can obviously expect the completion of the luminescent set of armor with this patch. We've known for a long time this was going to be the finale, just because in game you could mouse over a lot of this new armor set that they've added out, and you could see that the final pieces would be coming with the 8th episode, which is what we've got here. And we can also expect perhaps a few other things the trailer certainly will supplement here, but the idea that this weird Mordrum area that has been in the Silverwastes for oh so long will finally open up to us. Consequence could develop from these vines that have slowly, ever since we first visited the Silverwastes, been crawling their way across the map. I don't know whether you guys are totally aware of this, but those vines that have slowly been spreading out actually do update in real time in the game. I was so shocked over the Christmas break to see a video where someone actually managed to capture one of these vines sprouting out from the ground and pushing deeper towards the Pact camp. Now, it looks like that problem's getting even worse this patch, but maybe we can finally fight the vines back. Is this going to be the end of the fighting in the Silverwastes? The ultimate conclusion to the meta event? I guess we'll have to see. The trailer does seem to hint at a few things. Also, remember that on Twitter, throughout the entirety of this half of a season, they have been giving us little nuggets of information about Ritlock's adventures in the mists. Now, remember, before we had the break, Ritlock was dragged down. He tried to cleanse Ascalon of the ghosts foolheartedly. He didn't adhere to the prophecy fully, and in quite a shock twist in my opinion, he actually got dragged down to the mist. We haven't seen anything of him since. Now, the assumption is that he's totally alive and everyone's fine and he'll pop back at some point, but we haven't seen anything of that in game. However, as this season has rolled out, ArenaNet have been releasing numerous images showing us his adventures and giving us loads of cryptic text. The trailer doesn't seem to touch on this at all, but I'm wondering, do we get a payoff of Ritlock's adventure now in the finale? Is this where the finale goes above and beyond? Or was all this teasing incredibly premature and we won't get payoffs for this until Season 3? Somehow I think that's not going to be true. Alright, so I'll just clarify, a lot of the shots in this trailer are going to be showing generic Silverwastes fight stuff, but their fights seem to be depicting events and things that do not currently happen in the Silverwastes. Pretty much every time they've done an update to the Silverwastes, there has been some means of augmenting, the overall meta event that goes on there. Something that seems like logically it should progress to a giant boss fight, but currently doesn't. It is 100% my impression that it finally will, and that big creature we and, I believe it was Kaith we were with, and Kanak, scouted at the start of this season, I think we'll finally be able to take out. This raises a few questions. Number one on my mind, of course, is how difficult is this boss going to be? Are we talking Mega Boss level once again? My hunch really says no, sadly. I think that they'd probably be best keeping it at the same vague difficulty level that the Silverwastes is already at, as in the difficulty level where pugs, should they put in effort, can actually complete it fairly consistently, fairly quickly. Does that mean for me as a player that that's what excites me most? No, not at all. I think the ideal world would be that they'd have this generic balance that just rolls in the open world, but guilds can get together and pop their own guild mission version of it, which is, hey, what do you know, a hard mode version with better loot drops and exclusive loot and stuff like that. But hey, maybe that's a pipe dream and we'll never get it. I'm really not going to have too much more to elaborate on the idea of the Silverwastes expanding. There's maybe this interesting question of, well, what's going to happen? Are we going to do the meta event and then go in the labyrinth and then the boss spawns? Or is it going to get shuffled around a bit and we're going to do the meta event and suddenly the boss spawns and the state of the map changes completely? We kill the boss, and if we kill the boss, then we get access to the labyrinth after. It just seems like pacing-wise, it'd be really weird for half the players on the map to be running around playing Pac-Man in the labyrinth, while the other half of the map of players are fighting for their lives, trying to defeat this, like, boss desperately and ultimately failing because other people are going for loot. That wouldn't make much sense, so I'm maybe expecting the labyrinth to move a little, but yeah. Okay, let's do the frame by frame. This is where it should get interesting. So, as the trailer's going on, for what it's worth, I actually don't think it's a very good trailer. Especially in comparison to some of the hype and build-up we had last year for the previous finale, but okay. So we're getting some very sort of out-of-place music. There's actually a lot of people online commenting, hey, just mute this video and put on this one with this epic music, and all of a sudden it's a really cool trailer. And unfortunately as well, because of the nature of the way these updates are, where they just keep updating and refining the same map we've seen, a lot of these shots look like it's stuff we've seen before. Like, a lot of it looks like it's reused. Some of it is reused, but often you're seeing different things happening on the screen each time. Nonetheless, not the greatest trailer really in the world, especially not for a finale, but let's see what we can get out of it. There's more there than you'd expect. As the trailer progresses, we cut to these black screens and we get random text that I suppose is supposed to get us pumped up. They read in their entirety, when your world is threatened, you must prepare. You can study your enemies and rally your allies, but then you will face a decisive moment. You will reach a point of no return. So again, going on with this idea of a point of no return, and often they're doing interesting things. So like when they say you can study your enemies, we suddenly get a load of shots of the German Priory and stuff, which I'm about to talk about. In addition to that information, in the description of the video, sort of their press release line with the video, we also get this information. Time is running out. The Pact fleet is poised to launch, as we were well aware of, and Glint's egg is still missing. You have one last memory seed to plant. Something I don't remember them setting up. Really? Did they say we had one last one? And the search through Kaith's past has led you to a cave sealed shut with strange magic. The time for truth has come. Find a way to break the seal, enter the cave, and learn what happened all those years ago. And so from the description there, it would sound like it's purely another flashback patch. That's absolutely not going to be the case. We see a lot of the stuff in trailer that directly contradicts that. In fact, the trailer shows very little of the flashbacks. So yes, let's go in. The first shot is reuse stuff showing us the destruction of prosperity. Again, with the theme of the update, this whole point of no return thing, I think it's just supposed to make us think, hey, stuff could get destroyed, there's some kind of risk going on here. Then they also show us the vines sapping away at the waypoints. Again, I think it's the same general concept, but now we're sort of wondering to ourselves, okay, are the waypoints still on the table? Is the destruction of waypoints still going to be a thing? Is Timey's plan really going to fail? And are we going to get this kind of interesting mechanical gameplay difference in Guild Wars 2? Again, my gut says no, because I think there's a lot of push-pull, and some players hate the idea of less waypoints, even though, in my honest opinion, the gameplay is so much better when there are less. So now we get a new shot, and we're looking at the Silverwastes, and we're near the entrance of the giant Mordrum plant thingy. So this thing's going to come up quite a few times. It might be hard to recognize on this shot that that's exactly where we are, but just down that like lane, that hallway there, you would come to that giant planty mass. And what you want to notice really here as well when you pause is that there is new stuff on the map. There's like siege around, there are explosives, it looks like there's supplies there. This definitely looks like a new event that's being added to the game, just on the boundaries of that. And this would be the as expected expansion to kind of the meta event style thing going on in the Silverwastes. The next one is of the giant Mordrum monster itself that we scouted before, except it's super close up, closer than we've ever seen it before. Is that because we actually get to kill it this patch? And then we go all the way back to the other side of the Silverwastes to the Pact camp, and we can see in the sky the glory of Tyria, plus loads of airships flying away. They're sort of, I think, trying to demonstrate that in the story, the Pact are going off to attack Mordremoth now. They're going to be pushing deeper into the Maguma Wastes. My speculation, as a few of you guys should know, is I actually think the Pact will end up leaving without us, because we're dealing with all this other egg stuff that's going to just become all this dramatic nonsense. And in the meantime, Johan's going to say, okay, we need to go, we can't keep stalling, and then maybe something terrible will happen to them, and perhaps that will be the conclusion of the season. That's the point of no return, their destruction. But you can totally see them pushing off here, and I think that's going to be a big plot point this patch. And then we see just a bunch more Pact stuff. We have a shot of an Asura building a golem. We have some people welding these helicopter machines. Now, the helicopter machines we used a lot during the ore stuff, but we haven't really seen too much of them in the Mordrum arc. We saw them, again, when we were scouting, we were collected by one, but otherwise there hasn't been too much activity of those. It'd be kind of cool if, you know, we can summon airstrikes and stuff in the Silverwastes right now. It'd be nice if more of that air support stuff came forward and we could do more things with the helicopters too. That would be pretty badass. And then another shot here of the airships just flying off. Again, it's the same kind of idea that the Pact are going to be leaving. What I find kind of fun here is that we get a blatant shot of the edge of the map, like with the abyss on the side. And it looks like the trailer makers were just quite bombardier about throwing that in there. But hey, it works. Alright, so then we get a bit of a cut because we get some of the more of the text come up about studying our enemies. And we come into probably the most exciting part of the trailer for me. We go back to the Dermot Priory. So it looks like whatever we learn in the cave, we can assume that we have the flashback bit. And now the story progresses, and it looks like we're going back to the Priory. And what we're seeing here is the outside of the Priory, and then we get another establishing shot that we're in the library. We see the Abaddon statue. I really doubt this patch is going to have anything to do with Abaddon. It's just sort of showing us where we are. It's funny how my mentality has changed like that, has switched like that. You remember when we first saw the Abaddon statue in a previous trailer? And everyone's freaking out thinking he's going to be a part of the plot, and now you realize, oh, he's just sort of a part of the decor in there. But so we go back to the Priory, and we see Ogden. Ogden and Marjorie in particular together in a shot. Looks like they're talking together. Marjorie is the only character we see here at the Priory, so it looks like the party's going to split up somewhat. Is that intentional, or is that Marjorie's been thrown away from everyone else? Everyone else is caught somewhere, for example. I'll touch on that idea again in a second. But so Marjorie seems to come for help, it would seem, to Ogden. Now, Ogden is a character as well I have roughly speculated about before, that I think he's quite a high-risk character for dying too. Ogden is too convenient of a character in the world. He knows too much. He's too old. He has too much information for us. Information maybe the writers and the narrative of the story we're not supposed to know yet, so it would only make sense if something disastrous happened to him. You always see this in TV shows, in films, in games, where you have this really knowledgeable guy. You get just a moment to communicate with them, and then they get slapped away somehow. Maybe that will happen this patch, but I can't imagine why anything would attack the Priory, unless, again, of course, the point of no return is the Priory gets destroyed because of all the magical nonsense there, and the Mordrum go nuts. But the trailer doesn't hint at anything like this. It doesn't sound like the story's ever suggested something like this, so that's a bit up in the air for now. So we're going to be talking to Ogden, hopefully getting some lore bombs there. It seems like the lore quality, at least of this patch, is going to be quite high. Then we get a zoom through of the library left to right, and if you pause at a very specific moment, you will find that Marjorie is looking at some books with another character, a Silvari character. Now, this isn't a character we've seen before, and I'm like 99% sure. I've seen some speculation about this character. That, you know, oh, could it be, is this Wynn in the present day? Is this, well, what is this? This is all curious. Some kind of a new character joining the cast. I actually think, guys, this is just a player character. Usually we see the ArenaNet controlling chart and stuff in their trailers, but I think that's just the player character. I think the player character goes with Marjorie back to the Priory, and for the sake of this trailer that was being made, they were playing some kind of Silvari tune, and we really don't have to look into it too much more. My immediate thought, I will be honest, was I saw it and I thought, oh god, there's a Silvari there reading the book, so is this some kind of Mordrum sleeper agent? What's going to happen here? I'm pretty sure it's just the player character. We're going to see this character again in the next shot, where they're stood on some crates next to Marjorie, looking at the worm encased in jade. And so now this gives us a bit of context maybe as to why we came to the Priory, or what we're looking for. Are we looking for information about Cantha? For those of you who never played the game or don't know, the great southern continent, very far down, many players want to go to. They speculate the first expansion for the game could be in Cantha. You guys should all know at this point all the excitement about the Pact South information and reveal and stuff. You know, people think that an expansion could be on ArenaNet's lips right now, and it would seem here that they're looking at stuff to do with Cantha, this giant block of jadeite that we knew from the previous game was formed in the Jade Sea, a Canthan region. So why would they be looking at this? Is this just sort of aimless teasing? Is this ArenaNet just saying, hey, yeah, the character's looking at it only for the trailer, or is there actually a moment in the story where we and Marjorie look and ruminate on what this thing is or where it came from? And why would we be doing that? The most direct link I can think of for why we would suddenly be interested in Cantha with Marjorie is we view the memory of Kaith. We travel into this cave ourselves, which I'll talk about in a second. Something disastrous happens. Marjorie and us get separated from everyone else, but within the cave, we kind of learned that there are lots of seeds for pale trees, something deep about Morgemoth, and then this leads us to realize there may have been another one in the Echovald Forest, and then there we angle into Cantha, but definitely something in that cave would have to mention Cantha for this to be relevant, unless it is just aimless teasing. Then we get another cut, and a pretty cool shot, something I was actually really happy to see. Now, it might not mean too much, but we see a group of heroes stood together. What we're looking at here is Zodja, Air, Logan, and Bram. Now, this is kind of an odd mix. Now, Bram, obviously, Air is his mother, and there's been these stories about how they're coming closer together, so it would make sense that ultimately they end up adventuring together. They all have the same end game goal, right? But what I really like about this shot is it kind of is showing us here what remains of Destiny's Edge. You know, like, people are scattered now, and these are the guys that are left, and they're even being joined by someone who wasn't traditionally a part of Destiny's Edge. We've got Bram here, and this is a really, really positive direction for me. This is exactly what I wanted to see. Just look at these characters and how this group sort of dynamically formed. We don't have this stupid idea that I feel like Gw2's been stuck in for a long time, where they said before launch, oh, we've got this band of adventuring heroes, boom, this is Destiny's Edge, and the story is so, like, basic and cartoony, you would never expect them to, like, split up. It's, you know, Destiny's Edge, and then we had Destiny's Edge 2.0, and they were like their totally own separate little entity, and you just expect ArenaNet to keep these merry bands of adventurers wandering around together, and they never, like, just actively and intelligently and realistically based on the story split up and mold together and stuff. But that's exactly what we're seeing here. We're seeing what is left of Destiny's Edge, and that is not the same group we once saw before, and it's been done realistically in a fun way, and that I very much enjoy. And then we get another cut of another group of characters. Bram actually appears in both, as it would seem. So we got Bram, Casimir, Marjorie, and Rox this time. This is outside the Seed Cave, and the thing that really steals the show here is that the cave has all these markings lit up, markings that we've known about for a while, through breaking out of maps, through data mining, stuff like that. And so what have we got here? We've got the two serpents we saw in the previous patch, and firmly planted between them we can see those 3 runes of Ascension. I've mentioned these on my channel before. These 3 symbols are not random arbitrary symbols, guys, that ArenaNet have just painted on there to look pretty. In the first game, our heroes went through this ritual called Ascension to become closer to the gods so that they could fight their unseen enemies, the Masad, okay? And it was this very magical and mysterious procedure we don't fully know everything about even to this day. But to become Ascended, we had 3 specific tasks to complete within the Crystal Desert, and each of these tasks had a rune associated with them. Those are the runes you're seeing on that door. The people who governed the rites of Ascension were the Forgotten, a race of snake people. What do we have flanking these 3 runes on this door? Snake people. ArenaNet are really explicitly saying something to us here. They're saying, in my opinion, you need to become Ascended somehow, or Ascension is somehow involved with all this stuff with the Seed Cave and so forth. And what more do we see? We see some kind of portal against that rock. What does this mean? Is this portal? This is the wild speculation. Is this portal going to take us to the Crystal Desert? Are we suddenly going to be in the Crystal Desert this patch? Is this the finale? Is this how the finale goes above and beyond? I'm doubtful. I'm concerned and I'm doubtful, because I feel like if that really was the way the story was going and we'd go into this massive new area, even if it was only for a living world instance and not like an open world place just yet, I feel like we would at least see some inkling of it on the trailer, right? Like, they do have a history for this. It's not totally bizarre, because look at what they did with Glint's Lair before. Glint's Lair was a sizable instance, a big new zone we could go to. Why couldn't the Crystal Desert be something akin to that for this patch when we head through this portal? But even with Glint's Lair, they couldn't help but show a little bit of it in the trailer, right? If there was something so big and exciting in this patch, wouldn't there be a little bit more of a hint to it just now? I feel like they wouldn't just keep something so huge under wraps the entire time. Maybe what we're looking at here, and as cheesy and horrible as it would be for them to do in the trailer for the patch, maybe we're looking at some kind of big cliffhanger. Maybe Marjorie and us, we never go through this portal for some reason. Everyone else does, and now they're locked on the other side, and this is what leads us to go to the Priory. Or perhaps we do, and we really are going to get a glimpse of this. Why is Ascension involved? Well, that's a lot harder to say, but I'll talk more about Ascension in just a second. Because the next shot, and this is very short, though probably the biggest lore bomb, the most interesting thing in the whole trailer, show some kind of a ghost. We're back at the Dermot Priory, and we see a ghost. And so the question is, who is this character? What are we doing at the Priory? Well, it seems we're summoning this ghost somehow. Who is it? Now, a lot of people are going to throw out straight away the idea that it is Prince Rurik. Prince Rurik is a really cool idea because we have this tangential story going on right now with Rytlock in the mists and this whole idea of trying to find his sword Sahothin. Now, Sahothin originally belonged to Prince Rurik, who is also presumably out there in the mists as a deceased great hero. And so there's this really cool idea that Rytlock would meet Rurik, for example. Maybe they'd have a tussle, whatever would happen. Rytlock would reappear and, oh, look, this means that Rurik's back in the Pact. This is going to be really cool. But I disagree. First of all, physically, the characters do just look very different. I believe Rurik had a moustache, and this guy doesn't. And second of all, you can see specifically what this ghost is wielding as a weapon. Don't you think that if it was Rurik, he would either have his flaming sword back, Sahothin, or they'd make a very deliberate point to have him be unarmed, as though, oh, he couldn't get this off of Rytlock as a part of the story? No, instead, what we see is this ghostly hero wielding some kind of a ghostly blade, something that looks very much like the Eternal Blade, which was a weapon in Guild Wars 1 and was wielded by a character called the Ghostly Hero in Guild Wars 1. Who was the Ghostly Hero? In terms of ascending, this was our, spirit guide, literally. In the first game, when we decided we had to ascend and we went to the Crystal Desert and we did these 3 missions with these 3 runes, we were being guided on our journey by the Ghostly Hero. And I think this is exactly who we're seeing right now in the Dermot Priory. The story of the Ghostly Hero is that he was once a character called Turai Ossa. Turai Ossa was elaborated on significantly in a later campaign, Nightfall for Guild Wars 1, where basically they set up this really cool story. It's one of my favorite stories in all of the Guild Wars lore, where you had this great hero, this man who rose to become a great wartime leader and saved all of his home continent of Alona. He saved it from an undead invasion. It ended up this, epic 1v1 battle between him and his undead nemesis, Palawa Joko, on a bridge, and he struck him down and ultimately was the victor. And with just a very small force of rogue elite fighters, he managed to push back this undead invasion. He became this great hero of his country. But then as a great hero, Turai Ossa started to hunger for power, and he started to become obsessed with magics, and in particular the idea of ascension, of becoming more than a man, of becoming closer to the gods. And then his life took a big tragic turn, where instead of being a great peacetime leader, he convinced half of his citizenry that they should all embark on a pilgrimage with him to the north through desolate, sulphurous wastelands to the Crystal Desert, where they could all, as a society, ascend and become close to the gods. And he had a cool idea, I guess, but it was a lust for power and it was a blinding by magic. And ultimately, after saving all these people of his kingdom, he led many of them astray, many of them to death, to starvation, to poisoning, to heat stroke, and tried to build a civilization in the Crystal Desert, which is a barren, unforgiving, inhospitable land, searching for ascension, and failed all of his people, was responsible ultimately for all of their death, the failure of this civilization. And then he was doomed to wander as a ghost in the Crystal Desert forevermore. Hundreds of years later, we, the heroes from Guild Wars 1, come along and say, yeah, we want to become close to the gods. We want to ascend. And he says, well, look, I have nothing left. I will help you as best I can. And of course, because we're the heroes, we actually succeed. So it's this really tragic, cool story about ascension. And who do we see here? What was the ultimate fate of Turai Ossa after we ascended? Well, there is perhaps some suggestions that then he traveled with us to the Hall of Heroes, but then that's kind of blurs the line, isn't necessarily canon. It's sort of involved with the old Guild Wars 1 PvP stuff, so we don't necessarily know his fate. What it looks like we've done here with Marjorie, though, is summon him once again. What it looks like is we've seen this door, we've seen the symbols of Ascension, we've gone to the Dermot Priory to research them, we find out about Ascension, and now in Guild Wars 2, just as we did in Guild Wars 1, we are looking for help with this task by summoning the Ghostly Hero once again, this giant mammoth of a man. Basically, there was speculation that he was actually a Norn back in Guild Wars 1, because he's this huge character, and there he is being summoned. And it slipped in this trailer in just a couple of seconds, just a few frames, basically. But there he is, and this is probably the biggest, most important thing to take away. It definitely looks like Crystal Desert Ascension stuff is going to be a part of the plot. That staring at the Jadeite and stuff from before, maybe that was just aimless teasing, because it doesn't look like the direction they're really going in. So let's whiz through the rest of the trailer, which is far less interesting. We get a shot of Kaith and Wynn from like old time Kaith, so you can see her armor's a bit different, the filter's a bit different. So this is our first shot of the actual vision itself. Wynn looks very scared and disturbed. Kaith doesn't seem to care very much. This will be the big thing that changed Kaith at some point, her big secret, the whole thing that Scarlet was poking at. We're going to be getting that this patch, and hopefully it will pay off. You can also see a lot of the new animations and stuff and rigging that they've been using, which is good. Considering it's the finale, I'd like to see a lot of that stuff. And then we cut to Kaith of the modern day, and we see her with the player character in some kind of a cave area. Now, I believe this is a new area, unless it's a part of the script jumping puzzle I just don't recognize. I think it's a totally new area, and they're sort of looking up. That will be continued on in just a second. But the next shot again shows us more Silverwaste stuff. It looks like sort of lane-based attacks on the boss. Again, just more hints that, hey, look, we're going to be getting some kind of big boss here. You see the Pact camp with all the vines that have now extended across the entire map into the inside of it with sort of darkened lighting. This is a really cool idea. It sort of shows that throughout this entire season, the vines have made a very clear progression from one end of the map, and now in the finale, they're getting into the base. Sort of suggests a lot of destruction there. I would guess it's got a lot to do with the new event mechanics. And then finally we cut back to this cave where we and Kaith were looking up, and we see the Mordrum Dragon champion, the Shadow of the Dragon, who was featured in the half finale before at the attack at the Grove. He has returned. He's got all new animations. He climbs down a rock wall and he shouts at us. And honestly, that final shot wasn't even that cool to me. It was more the other stuff earlier. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's what it looks like we're going to get next week. As far as I can speculate, that's about as far as I'm willing to go. Definitely think that's going to be the ghostly hero. It could end up as Rurik, but I seriously doubt it. And I guess always be remembering that this is supposed to be a point of no return. Hopefully we have a payoff on those Twitter images. Hopefully there really is something very significant that will happen here. And something that will keep us playing too, because of course we're now about to go into another big break. So let's hope they really did do a good one. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Am I wrong about the Turai thing? Is it actually even a plot you're looking forward to? Crystal Desert's always been the #1 thing everyone's always said. I want a new region in Guild Wars 2. Let's do the Crystal Desert. And maybe we're getting it? I don't know. Is that too outrageous for me to say? I would really love to hear what you guys think. Starting 2015, this is how they're going to begin it all for us. And it should be very interesting. Hope you guys have a great day, a great evening, and I guess I'll catch you next time.